and I was absolutely horrible at the violin. The only reason why I started the violin was because I had a crush on a girl named Sabrina, and I wanted to be next to Sabrina, but she rejected me, and so then I started playing cello because I made friends who played cello. I was in the car coming back from a show, and Veronique calls me in the car, and I was stuck in New York City traffic, like on the way from Brooklyn back to Manhattan. And I saw that she had left me a message earlier, and I was like, oh, it's just probably gonna be some event, some fundraiser event. I call her back and she says, congratulations, we're gonna give you an Avery Fisher Award, and I just start crying. I mean, like, it was just such an emotional thing because there's so much history and such a legacy with this award. That it just felt like such a wonderful time, to have received that. My sort of love for the instrument and the cello itself was definitely an entirely accidental event. I was in middle school. I got there to the first day of class, and I wanted to play the drums. So in my little survey, I actually picked orchestra. And of course, there's no drums in an orchestra, so I was really upset. And so I ended up staying in the class and playing the violin, and I was absolutely horrible at the violin. The only reason why I started the violin was because I had a crush on a girl named Sabrina, and I wanted to be next to Sabrina, but she rejected me. And so then I started playing cello because I made friends who played cello. So this cello is made in 1767 by Niccolo Galliano, and it's on loan to me from Roger Dubois at Kennemex Incorporated. When I originally went to Roger Dubois' home for him to lay out the instruments that were going to be an option for me to choose, he laid out 4 cellos and 4 bows, and so I would have to pick between those 8 things. And so of all the cellos, actually, this wasn't the first one that I chose. And sound, and it's because sound is a little bit strange when it comes to these fine instruments, is that under your ear, it's very different from what it sounds like out there. So if you were to stand across the room and listen to this instrument, it's very different from what I'm experiencing. There was an instrument made by Viome that I instantly was drawn to the sound, and I knew that was the instrument. But out there, it wasn't projecting as much to the people who were listening to me playing these. And so the feedback was such a great thing because under the ear, this instrument didn't sound like it was really reaching out, but that was by far the favorite of everyone. The top register is essentially, it blasts into a hall. It's an unbelievable sound. It's got a beautiful middle register, a really robust bottom register. It's just everything in a cello that I've ever wanted. So one of the reasons why I picked the piece by Ernesto Lecuona called Malagueña, but also the Debussy, is that both are sort of, they're part of my heritage. So my heritage from one generation ago goes back to Cuba. My dad came over in 1961 with his family with absolutely nothing, went to Miami, they started a plumbing company. And so Ernesto Lecuona, being a Cuban composer, I was just fascinated by his work, and so I have a best friend named Greg Zellick who actually arranged this music for cello and organ, and then we readapted it for cello and piano. And then the French music, so my grandfather, who was in Cuba, he actually came from France. And so I love that this is kind of melding into this sort of heritage collection of pieces that it feels very personal to me. I'll be playing Debussy's Sonata in D minor, and this piece is very, very special in that it still to this day sounds experimental, even though it was written in the 1910s, right? And there's so many different things that it allows the cellist to express. 10 different types of pizzicatos, 10 different types of ways to use the bow in relativity to the bridge. almost every single note that Debussy writes down, there is an expressive marking that goes with it. So an accent with a dot, accent with a dash. There's so many things, and the list goes on and on. So it's the detail that the cellist has to express in this music is so wonderful, but what comes out is this style of Debussy that we all know and love. The first movement of the Debussy Sonata prologue, there is a lot of sort of improvisatory kind of feeling in it, and there's a lot of ornamental figures in the cello line that feel like grace notes, but they're actually written out. And so you see that a lot in Debussy's music, where it creates these colors, but on the page it's just black notes, like very quick notes. And I love that, how that creates this idea of, color without it actually indicating so. So Malagueña is sort of dance of Malaga, and that is definitely, this kind of music is known all over the world. It's one of the most recognizable tunes from the Cuban and Spanish kind of roots, and I love that it's adapted for the first time ever for cello and piano in this format. So this is a little bit of a premiere in a sense. The pianist I'll be collaborating with is Ilya Yakushev, and we have performed all over the country together on many different occasions as a duo. We've covered lots of repertoire, and I just am so glad that he was able to make it. He had 2 free days here in New York City during this time period, and it is absolutely coincidental. So it's wonderful. I do love teaching, and I recently was hired at Manhattan School of Music. I've always loved mentoring and just helping young cellists out, and so I, for the last several years have gone around and done master classes at different universities, conservatories, colleges, and finally I get to build my own studio and a place that attracts wonderful students at Manhattan School of Music. So that's really exciting. I adore that now I can have a base somewhere, still perform and still go off and do whatever I have to do on stage, but also apply what I learn on stage to help these students. There's maybe 10 to 15 different pizzicatos that Debussy expresses on the music. Some have hairpins going to a piano, some have accents with a dash, some have accents with a dot. I mean, there's so many different ways to play this music, but it all feels very stream of consciousness.